Welcome, everyone, and thank you for listening. This is English for Everyone, a calm space where you can improve your English just by listening.
You do not need to understand every word. You do not need to pause or repeat unless you want to. Just relax and let the language flow.
This podcast is designed to help you feel comfortable with English. You can listen while walking, resting, cooking, or doing nothing at all.
Listening regularly is more important than listening perfectly. Over time, your understanding will grow naturally.
In today's episode, we will talk about daily life and routines. But before we go deep, we want to tell you how this episode is structured.
First, we will talk about why routines matter in daily life. Then we will discuss morning habits and how people start their day.
After that, we will talk about work routines and how people manage their time. Later, we will explore evening routines and ways people relax.
Finally, we will talk about weekends, balance, and how routines change over time.
This episode is meant to be long and gentle. You do not need to listen all at once.
You can pause and return at any time. Every minute you listen is already helping your English.
Now, let's begin with our first topic. Let's start with a simple question. What is a routine, really?
Most people think of routines as schedules, but they're more than that.
A routine is anything you do again and again, often without thinking about it.
Waking up, checking the time, making tea or coffee,
The way you get ready in the morning, the order you do things.
even how you relax at night. Those are routines too.
These actions may seem small, but together they shape how our days feel.
They affect our energy, our mood, our focus.
Many people hear the word routine and feel resistance. They imagine boredom or restriction.
Yeah, they think routines remove freedom.
But in reality, routines often do the opposite. They create stability.
When life feels predictable in small ways, the mind feels calmer.
Think about how tiring it would be to decide every single thing from scratch every day.
What time to wake up, what to eat, when to rest.
Routines reduce mental effort. They save energy.
That energy can then be used for thinking, learning, or creativity.
This is especially important for people learning English.
Because language learning already requires mental effort.
If listening becomes part of your routine, it feels easier over time.
You don't need motivation every day, you just follow the habit.
That's why we encourage gentle routines, not strict ones.
Something flexible, something that fits your life.
Routines don't need to be perfect. They just need to exist.
And they can change. Nothing is fixed forever.
Daily life is always changing. Work changes, responsibilities change.
And routines should change with them.
Sometimes routines support us. Sometimes they stop working.
That's normal.
The important thing is noticing, becoming aware of what you do each day.
Not judging, just observing.
In the next part, we'll talk about daily life more deeply.
What a typical day looks like, and why small moments matter.
For now, stay relaxed. Keep listening.
We'll continue slowly in part 2.
Now that we've talked about what routines are, let's talk about daily life itself.
Daily life is not made of big moments. It's made of ordinary ones.
Most days look very similar, and that's not a bad thing.
We often wait for special days to feel happy, but most of life happens on regular days.
A normal morning, a normal afternoon, a quiet evening.
When people say time moves fast, they're usually talking about daily life.
Because routines make days blend together.
Monday feels like Tuesday. Tuesday feels like Wednesday.
And suddenly a week has passed.
That can feel scary sometimes.
But it can also be comforting.
There's something safe about knowing what to expect.
Daily life gives us rhythm, a sense of flow.
Like music. Not every note is exciting.
But together they create something meaningful.
When routines are healthy, daily life feels balanced.
You wake up. You do what you need to do.
You have moments of effort and moments of rest.
But when routines are unhealthy, daily life feels heavy.
Too rushed, too tiring.
Many people feel tired, not because they do too much, but because their routines don't support them.
They move through the day on autopilot.
without stopping to ask how they actually feel.
Daily life becomes something to survive, not something to experience.
That's why awareness is important.
Just noticing your day can already change how it feels.
For example, notice how you start your morning.
Do you feel rushed or calm?
Do you wake up slowly or immediately feel pressure?
These small details matter,
They affect the rest of the day.
and they're connected to routines,
Daily life is built, one small habit at a time,
and habits can be adjusted,
not all at once, not perfectly.
just gently,
For English learners, daily life is the best classroom.
because English is part of daily life.
You hear it in music, in videos, it's in conversations,
Listening regularly turns English into something familiar.
not something stressful.
That's why this podcast fits into daily life.
You don't need to study it. Just let it play.
Let it become part of your routine.
In the next part, we'll focus on the morning.
How people start their day, and why mornings are important.
We'll continue slowly in part 3. Let's move into mornings because for many people, the way the day begins has a strong influence on everything that follows. Mornings often set the emotional and mental tone for the rest of the day, even if we're not fully aware of it.
I agree. What's interesting is that mornings tend to be quite automatic. People wake up and immediately fall into familiar patterns without questioning them. Yet those early moments are when the mind is still relatively open and sensitive.
Exactly. Many people underestimate how influential that first hour can be. It's not necessarily about waking up early or following a strict routine, but about the quality of attention you bring to that time.
For example, some people wake up and immediately check their phone. They read messages, scroll through social media, or look at the news. That habit can quickly introduce stress, comparison, or urgency before the day has really started.
And once that sense of urgency enters the mind, it's very difficult to remove. Even if nothing urgent actually needs to be done, the body reacts as if it does. The day begins in a reactive mode rather than a calm one.
On the other hand, people who create a slower transition into the day often report feeling more focused and grounded. Simple actions like sitting quietly for a few minutes, making breakfast without distractions, or looking outside can have a surprisingly strong effect.
What I find important here is intention. Two people can perform the same activity in the morning, but experience it very differently depending on their mindset. Drinking coffee while rushing feels completely different from drinking coffee with awareness.
That's a good point. Mornings are not just about activities, they're about mental orientation. Are you immediately responding to demands, or are you choosing how to enter the day?
This also connects to productivity in an interesting way. Many people believe that starting the day quickly and aggressively makes them more productive. But in reality, a calmer morning often leads to better decision-making later on.
Because when the mind is overloaded early, it becomes harder to prioritize. People end up reacting to whatever appears in front of them instead of working intentionally.
Another aspect worth mentioning is individuality. There is no universal ideal morning routine. Some people feel most alert in the early hours, while others need more time to become fully awake.
Yes, forcing yourself into someone else's routine can be counterproductive. What matters is observing your own energy patterns and adjusting accordingly.
For English learners, mornings can also be an excellent opportunity for passive exposure. Listening to English audio while preparing for the day can be effective because the mind is not yet overwhelmed.
That's true. At that time, listening doesn't feel like study, it feels like background input, which is often when language acquisition works best.
So rather than seeing mornings as a race against time, it might be helpful to view them as a foundation, a way to gently prepare yourself for whatever the day brings.
And even small changes in that foundation can make a noticeable difference. You don't need to redesign your entire morning. Sometimes adjusting just one habit is enough.
In the next part, we'll move from mornings into work and daily responsibilities and talk about how routines can either support focus or slowly drain energy.
Yes, we'll look at how structure and flexibility interact during the working part of the day.
Before we move fully into evenings, I think it's important to pause and talk about energy. Many people assume that feeling tired is simply a result of doing too much, but in reality, mental fatigue often comes from how we structure our day.
That's an important distinction. Physical tiredness is usually straightforward. You rest, and it improves. Mental fatigue, however, is more complex. It's often linked to constant decision-making, interruptions, and a lack of clear boundaries.
Exactly. When people move from one task to another without intention, their attention becomes fragmented. Even if they're not doing physically demanding work, they end the day feeling drained.
This is where routines can either help or harm. A well-designed routine reduces unnecessary decisions. You don't have to constantly ask yourself what comes next. That cognitive relief preserves energy.
On the other hand, when routines are chaotic or overly rigid, they can increase exhaustion. Too much structure can feel suffocating, while too little can feel overwhelming.
It's a delicate balance. Ideally, routines should provide a loose framework rather than a strict script. They should guide the day, not control it.
Another factor that contributes to fatigue is the expectation of constant availability. Many people feel pressure to respond immediately to messages, emails, and notifications throughout the day.
That constant responsiveness keeps the brain in a state of alertness. It never fully settles. Over time, that leads to a sense of restlessness and reduced concentration.
Some people describe it as feeling busy all day but achieving very little. The day feels full yet unproductive.
That's often because attention is being pulled in too many directions. Deep focus requires protection, and routines can help create that protection.
For example, setting specific times to check messages can dramatically improve mental clarity. It allows the mind to fully engage with one task at a time.
And once focus improves, energy often follows. People are surprised to find that they feel less tired even though they haven't reduced their workload.
This also applies to language learning. Trying to actively study English when you're already mentally exhausted can feel frustrating.
But passive listening, especially later in the day, can still be effective. It allows exposure without demanding intense concentration.
That's why long-form listening works so well. You can absorb rhythm, pronunciation, and structure without effort.
It becomes part of the mental environment rather than another task on the to-do list.
Understanding your own energy patterns is essential here. Some people feel sharp in the morning, others feel clearer in the afternoon or evening.
There's no correct pattern. The key is alignment. When your routines match your natural energy, daily life feels smoother.
And when they don't, everything feels harder than it needs to be.
In the next part, we'll shift fully into evenings and talk about how people unwind, disconnect, and prepare for rest.
That transition from activity to rest is often overlooked, but it's one of the most important parts of the day. Now that we've talked about evenings and mental fatigue, it feels natural to talk about sleep. Sleep is often treated as something optional, something we fit in after everything else is done.
Yes, almost like a reward at the end of the day, rather than a basic necessity. But when sleep is irregular or insufficient, it quietly affects every part of daily life.
What's interesting is that many people focus on how long they sleep, but not on how they prepare for sleep. The routine before going to bed often matters just as much as the number of hours.
Absolutely. The body and mind don't switch off instantly. They need signals that the day is ending. Without those signals, sleep becomes lighter and less restorative.
This is where evening routines become especially important. Repeating the same calming actions each night helps the brain recognize that it's time to slow down.
Simple things can be very effective. Dimming the lights, reducing screen use, or doing the same quiet activity before bed can create a strong association with rest.
Many people struggle with racing thoughts at night. Their body is tired, but their mind keeps replaying the day or planning tomorrow.
That mental noise is often a result of unresolved attention. When the day is full of interruptions, the mind tries to process everything once things become quiet.
One helpful habit is externalizing those thoughts. Writing down tasks or worries before bed can reduce the mental load.
It gives the brain permission to let go, knowing that nothing important will be forgotten.
Sleep quality also reflects how balanced daily routines are overall. When days are consistently rushed or stressful, sleep tends to suffer.
And poor sleep then feeds back into the next day, reducing patience, focus, and emotional stability. It becomes a cycle.
Breaking that cycle doesn't require dramatic changes. Often, it's about creating consistency rather than perfection.
Going to bed at a similar time most nights, even on weekends, can significantly improve how rested you feel.
For English learners, sleep plays an especially important role. During sleep, the brain consolidates what it has heard and learned.
That means listening to English during the day can actually continue to help you while you're asleep.
Another reason to avoid pressure. When learning feels relaxed, the brain processes it more efficiently during rest.
This connects back to everything we've discussed so far. Routines are not just about productivity, they're about sustainability.
A routine that supports good sleep is a routine that supports long-term well-being.
And when well being improves, learning, focus, and motivation naturally follow.
In the next part, we'll step back and look at weekends and how changing routines can either refresh us or leave us feeling more exhausted.
That contrast between structure and freedom is very interesting.
Bella, we'll explore that in part 8. Let's talk about weekends, because they often represent freedom. During the week, routines are usually shaped by work or study. On weekends, that structure loosens, and people suddenly have more choice.
And interestingly, that freedom can feel uncomfortable. Many people look forward to weekends, but once they arrive, they're not always sure how to use the time.
There's often an expectation that weekends should be productive or exciting. People feel pressure to catch up on tasks, see friends, improve themselves, or make the most of every hour.
That pressure can quietly undermine rest. Instead of recovering, people move from one obligation to another, just in a different form.
What's striking is how difficult true rest has become. Doing nothing can feel wrong, almost like wasting time.
Yes, especially in cultures that value constant activity. Rest can feel undeserved unless it's earned through exhaustion.
But rest isn't a reward. It's a requirement. Without it, routines become unsustainable.
Weekends can be an opportunity to rebalance energy, but only if people allow themselves to slow down without guilt.
Another common pattern is using weekends to compensate for the week. People sleep much later, eat at irregular times, and abandon all structure.
While that can feel enjoyable in the short term, extreme changes often make Monday harder. The body struggles to readjust.
That's why some level of consistency can actually support rest. Not strict schedules, but gentle anchors.
For example, waking up only slightly later, keeping regular meals, or maintaining one familiar habit.
Weekends are also when people reflect, sometimes unconsciously. Thoughts about the past week or the week ahead often surface.
That reflection can be useful, but it can also turn into worry if there's no space to process it calmly.
Creating small, reflective routines can help. A quiet walk, journaling, or simply sitting without distractions.
Those moments give meaning to rest. They make weekends feel restorative rather than empty.
For English learners, weekends can be a great time for longer listening. There's less pressure, and attention feels more open.
Listening while resting rather than forcing study often leads to better absorption.
That's an important idea. Learning doesn't always look like effort. Sometimes it looks like ease.
And weekends remind us of that balance between structure and freedom.
In the next part, we'll talk about how routines evolve over time and why flexibility is essential as life changes.
That long-term perspective helps everything make more sense.
We'll continue in part 10. Let's talk about weekends because they often represent freedom. During the week, routines are usually shaped by work or study. On weekends, that structure loosens, and people suddenly have more choice.
And interestingly, that freedom can feel uncomfortable. Many people look forward to weekends, but once they arrive, they're not always sure how to use the time.
There's often an expectation that weekends should be productive or exciting. People feel pressure to catch up on tasks, see friends, improve themselves, or make the most of every hour.
That pressure can quietly undermine rest. Instead of recovering, people move from one obligation to another, just in a different form.
What's striking is how difficult true rest has become. Doing nothing can feel wrong, almost like wasting time.
Yes, especially in cultures that value constant activity. Rest can feel undeserved unless it's earned through exhaustion.
But rest isn't a reward, it's a requirement. Without it, routines become unsustainable.
Weekends can be an opportunity to rebalance energy, but only if people allow themselves to slow down without guilt.
Another common pattern is using weekends to compensate for the week. People sleep much later, eat at irregular times, and abandon all structure.
While that can feel enjoyable in the short term, extreme changes often make Monday harder. The body struggles to readjust.
That's why some level of consistency can actually support rest. Not strict schedules, but gentle anchors.
For example, waking up only slightly later, keeping regular meals, or maintaining one familiar habit.
Weekends are also when people reflect, sometimes unconsciously. Thoughts about the past week or the week ahead often surface.
That reflection can be useful, but it can also turn into worry if there's no space to process it calmly.
Creating small reflective routines can help. A quiet walk, journaling, or simply sitting without distractions.
Those moments give meaning to rest. They make weekends feel restorative rather than empty.
For English learners, weekends can be a great time for longer listening. There's less pressure, and attention feels more open.
Listening while resting rather than forcing study often leads to better absorption.
Bella. That's an important idea. Learning doesn't always look like effort. Sometimes it looks like ease.
And weekends remind us of that balance between structure and freedom.
Bella. In the next part, we'll talk about how routines evolve over time and why flexibility is essential as life changes.
That long-term perspective helps everything make more sense.
We'll continue in part 10. Bella. One thing that often creates frustration around routines is the idea that they should stay the same. People find something that works for a while and then feel disappointed or even guilty when it stops working.
Yes, there's a tendency to interpret that change as failure, but in reality, routines are meant to evolve. Life itself is not static, so expecting routines to remain fixed doesn't make much sense.
What worked during one phase of life may be completely unsuitable in another. Responsibilities change, energy levels shift, and priorities naturally adjust over time.
And yet, many people hold on to old routines because they associate them with discipline or identity. Letting go can feel like losing control, even when the routine is no longer helpful.
That's an important point. Routines often become emotionally charged. They stop being practical tools and start representing who we think we should be.
For example, someone might believe they are a morning person because they used to wake up early. When that stops working, instead of adapting, they criticize themselves.
Flexibility requires a different mindset. It means viewing routines as experiments rather than commitments.
Experiments can be adjusted without judgment. You observe, make changes, and observe again.
This approach reduces pressure and encourages curiosity. Instead of asking, "Why can't I stick to this?" the question becomes, "What does my life need right now?"
That question is much more productive. It acknowledges that needs are not fixed, and that responsiveness is a strength, not a weakness.
Bella. Another aspect of flexibility is recognizing seasons. Some periods of life require more structure. Others benefit from looseness.
Trying to apply the same level of discipline during stressful or uncertain times can actually increase exhaustion.
Bella. In those moments, simplifying routines can be an act of care rather than avoidance.
That might mean focusing only on essentials, sleep, nourishment, and a few grounding habits.
Everything else becomes optional.
This perspective is especially relevant for learning. Many people abandon language learning because they try to maintain an unrealistic routine.
They expect consistent, high-effort study, even when life becomes demanding.
But learning doesn't disappear when routines change. It simply takes a different form.
Listening instead of studying, exposure instead of practice.
And that's often enough to maintain progress.
When routines are flexible, they're more likely to survive change.
And when they survive change, they become sustainable.
In the next part, we'll talk about identity and routines, how habits shape how we see ourselves, sometimes in helpful ways and sometimes in limiting ones.
That connection between behavior and identity is powerful and often overlooked.
We'll explore that in part 11. Let's talk about identity, because routines are rarely just about time management. Over time, they begin to shape how we see ourselves, and that can be both helpful and limiting.
Yes, people often describe themselves through their habits. Someone might say, I'm an early riser, or I'm not good at routines, as if these are fixed personality traits.
Those labels feel solid, but they're usually based on patterns from a particular phase of life. When circumstances change, the label may no longer fit, yet people continue to believe it.
And that belief can create resistance to change. If your identity is strongly tied to a certain routine, adjusting it can feel like losing part of yourself.
This is especially common with productivity routines. People often equate discipline with self-worth, so when a routine breaks, it feels like a personal failure.
But routines are behaviors, not identities. They describe what you do, not who you are.
Separating those two ideas is important. It allows routines to serve you rather than define you.
It also creates space for compassion. When a habit disappears, it doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It usually means your life is asking for something different.
Another interesting aspect is how routines influence confidence. When routines align with your energy and values, they reinforce a positive self-image.
You feel capable, reliable, in control of your time.
But when routines are imposed, either by external pressure or unrealistic expectations, they can slowly erode confidence.
People begin to feel inconsistent or unreliable, even though the routine itself may be the problem.
This is why intentional routine design matters. It's not just about efficiency, it's about psychological alignment.
For English learners, identity plays a huge role. Many people carry the identity of someone who is bad at languages.
And that belief affects how they approach learning. They expect difficulty, so every challenge confirms the identity.
But when listening becomes part of daily life rather than a performance, that identity can slowly shift.
You stop thinking of yourself as someone who is studying English and start seeing yourself as someone who lives with English around them.
That shift is subtle but powerful.
Routines help reinforce that new identity. Listening regularly, even passively, sends a different message to the brain.
It says, this language belongs here.
Identity doesn't change through motivation. It changes through repetition.
And repetition is exactly what routines provide.
In the next part, we'll talk about resistance. Why people resist routines even when they know those routines are helpful.
Understanding resistance can help us work with it instead of fighting it.
One of the reasons people struggle with routines is their relationship with time. We tend to expect results quickly, and when we don't see immediate progress, motivation fades.
Yes, modern life has trained us to look for fast feedback. We're used to instant responses, instant entertainment, and instant validation. But routines operate on a very different timeline.
They work quietly and gradually. Most of their impact is invisible in the beginning, which makes them easy to abandon.
This is especially true for habits that affect mental states rather than concrete outcomes. You don't always notice reduced stress or improved focus right away.
Instead, the benefits appear slowly. One day you realize you're less reactive. Another day you notice you're sleeping better. But it's rarely dramatic.
And because there's no clear moment of success, people often assume nothing is happening.
This misunderstanding leads to impatience. People change routines too quickly, constantly searching for something that feels immediately effective.
But that constant adjustment can actually prevent progress. The routine never has time to settle and do its work.
Patience is uncomfortable because it requires trust. You have to believe that small actions repeated over time matter, even when there's no proof yet.
That belief doesn't come naturally in a culture focused on speed and optimization.
Another interesting aspect of time is how routines affect our perception of it. When life lacks structure, days can feel chaotic and fragmented.
Time feels slippery. Hours disappear without a clear sense of how they were spent.
Well-designed routines can create anchors in the day. They divide time into meaningful segments.
That segmentation helps the brain register experiences more clearly. Days feel fuller, even if nothing extraordinary happens.
There's also an emotional dimension to time. When routines align with your values, time feels well spent.
But when routines feel imposed or misaligned, time can feel wasted, even if you're busy.
This distinction is important. Productivity alone doesn't create satisfaction. Meaning does.
For English learners, this idea is particularly relevant. Language learning often progresses beneath the surface.
You might listen for weeks without noticing improvement and then suddenly realize you understand more than before.
That moment can feel surprising, but it's the result of accumulated exposure.
Routines support this kind of slow growth. They create consistency without demanding constant evaluation.
Instead of asking every day, "Am I improving?" you simply continue.
Over time, understanding becomes more natural. Less effort is required.
That's when routines truly pay off, when progress feels integrated rather than forced.
In the next part, we'll talk about comparison. How comparing routines, productivity, and progress with others often creates unnecessary pressure.
And how stepping away from comparison can make routines more sustainable.
Comparison is one of the most common reasons routines fail. We rarely compare our beginnings to someone else's beginnings. Instead, we compare our everyday efforts to someone else's highlight moments.
And that comparison is almost always unfair. We see the result of someone's routine, not the years of repetition, doubt, and adjustment behind it.
Social media amplifies this problem. People share polished versions of their lives, not the messy reality of maintaining consistency.
You might see someone waking up at 5 in the morning, exercising, reading, journaling, and working before breakfast. It looks impressive, but it doesn't tell you whether that routine actually suits you.
Exactly. A routine that works well for one person may feel exhausting or unnatural for another.
This is why copying routines often leads to frustration. You're trying to live someone else's rhythm instead of discovering your own.
Every person has a different energy pattern. Some people think clearly in the morning. Others become more focused late at night.
Yet many routines are presented as universal solutions. Wake up early, work harder, do more.
But effectiveness depends on alignment. When routines clash with your natural rhythm, they require constant force.
And anything that requires constant force eventually collapses.
Another form of comparison comes from productivity culture. There's pressure to optimize every hour of the day.
Rest becomes something to justify rather than something to value.
People start measuring their worth through output. How much they did, how busy they were.
But routines aren't meant to maximize output. They're meant to create stability. Stability supports long-term growth. Without it, motivation becomes fragile.
For language learners, comparison can be especially damaging. You might hear someone speaking fluently and assume they learn faster than you. But language acquisition is deeply individual. Background, exposure, confidence, and emotional state all play a role.
Some learners speak early with many mistakes. Others stay silent longer and then speak more accurately.
Neither approach is better. They're simply different paths.
The danger of comparison is that it interrupts your process. Instead of listening and absorbing, you start judging yourself.
And judgment creates tension. Tension blocks learning.
A calm routine removes that tension. It allows progress without pressure.
Bella. Finding your own rhythm means observing yourself honestly. When do you feel most alert? When do you feel drained?
What routines feel supportive rather than restrictive?
This kind of self-observation takes time. It can't be rushed.
But once you find a rhythm that fits, consistency becomes easier.
And ease is a powerful indicator that a routine is sustainable.
In the next part, we'll talk about flexibility, how routines can remain stable while still adapting to change. Because life is unpredictable and routines must evolve with it.
Roger, let's gently shift the topic for a moment. We've talked a lot about routines, but I want to ask you something slightly different.
Go ahead, Bella. I'm curious.
Do you think routines actually help us focus, or do they sometimes make us operate on autopilot?
That's a great question. And honestly, I think they can do both.
That sounds like a very it depends answer.
It definitely is. A routine can create mental space, but only if we stay present inside it.
That's interesting, because many people follow routines while their mind is somewhere else entirely.
Exactly. They wake up, shower, eat, work, but they barely remember any of it.
Almost like the day disappears.
Yes. And that's not a time problem, it's an attention problem.
I like that distinction. Time passes anyway, but attention decides how we experience it.
Beautifully said.
Thank you. So let me ask you this. When do you personally feel most present during the day?
Usually during very simple moments, walking without my phone, making coffee slowly, listening to someone without planning my reply.
Those moments feel small, but they stay with you.
Exactly. They anchor the day.
I've noticed something similar. When I rush everything, the day feels heavy. But when I slow down even one activity, everything feels lighter.
That's because attention is calming by nature. It tells the nervous system that things are okay.
And for English learners listening right now, this matters a lot.
Absolutely. If you listen to English with tension, your brain resists it.
But if you listen while relaxed, while cooking or resting,
Your brain absorbs the rhythm naturally.
so maybe the real routine isn't about time.
It's about presence.
I love that. And I think that's a perfect place to pause before our next topic.
Agreed. In the next part, we can talk about how small moments of focus shape long-term habits.
That sounds great. Roger, can I be honest for a moment?
Always. That's kind of our job here. Laugh softly.
There are days when I know what I should do. I know my routine, and still, I just don't feel like doing it.
Yeah. That quiet resistance. Not dramatic, not lazy, just heavy.
Exactly. And I think a lot of listeners feel that too, especially with English.
I agree. People often imagine motivation as something loud and energetic. But most of the time, motivation is actually very quiet.
Or completely absent.
Laugh softly. Yes, and that's normal.
So let me ask you this, Roger. What do you do when motivation is gone?
Honestly, I stop waiting for it.
That's a strong answer.
Because waiting for motivation can become a habit, and not a helpful one.
So you rely on discipline?
Not exactly. Discipline sounds very strict. I prefer something gentler,
Like what?
lowering the expectation, doing the smallest possible version of the habit.
Ah, that's interesting. So instead of listening for 30 minutes,
You listen for 3.
or even one,
Exactly. And once you start, something often shifts.
not always though,
True. But even when it doesn't, you still showed up.
and that matters more than people think.
Consistency is built on showing up imperfectly.
I love that phrase, because many learners believe consistency means intensity.
Yes, but intensity burns out quickly.
Consistency is quiet, almost boring,
Very boring, but incredibly effective.
and motivation often follows action, not the other way around.
That's such an important point. You don't act because you feel motivated. You feel motivated because you acted.
So for listeners right now, if you're tired
Or distracted,
or not fully focused,
that's okay.
just listening right now is enough.
You're already doing the work.
And English doesn't require perfect energy. It requires gentle contact.
A little every day, or even most days,
And when you miss a day,
you come back without guilt,
that might be the hardest part.
but also the most powerful. All right. In the next part, I think we should talk about confidence. Yes, especially how confidence grows quietly without us noticing.
That sounds perfect.
Let's continue.
When we talk about speaking, many learners feel an immediate shift inside their body. Their breathing changes, their shoulders tense, and suddenly their mind feels empty. This reaction is very common, and it does not mean something is wrong.
Speaking feels different because it is exposed. Listening is private, but speaking places you in front of others. That visibility often triggers fear, even when the situation is safe.
People begin to worry about how they sound. They worry about their accent, their grammar, and whether they are too slow. These thoughts create pressure before the conversation even begins.
But real communication is not about perfection. It is about sharing meaning, even when the message is incomplete. Most conversations allow space for mistakes, pauses, and corrections.
Native speakers pause all the time. They restart sentences, change direction, and search for words. Fluency does not mean smoothness, it means movement.
That's an important distinction. Fluency is the ability to keep going, not the ability to speak without errors. When learners understand this, speaking becomes less frightening.
I often tell people that speaking is like thinking out loud. You are not delivering a prepared speech. You are discovering the sentence as you speak it.
That mindset removes the need to be perfect. It allows space for exploration, and exploration is where learning happens.
Many learners stay silent because they are waiting for the perfect sentence, but that sentence rarely comes under pressure. Silence feels safe, but it slows growth. Speaking imperfectly is far more useful than staying silent. Even short, simple responses train the brain to respond in English.
That habit is powerful over time,
You do not need long explanations. A few words are enough to participate. Each small success builds confidence quietly.
and confidence grows through repetition, not force. The more often you speak, the less dramatic it feels. It becomes part of your routine.
Eventually, something shifts. You stop thinking about every word. You start focusing on meaning instead. That shift is subtle, but important. It shows that the language is becoming familiar.
And familiarity reduces fear.
This is why consistency matters so much. Not long sessions, but regular contact. A little speaking, again and again.
Consistency creates trust between you and the language. It tells your brain that English is safe, and safety supports learning.
Let's talk more about that in the next part.
Yes. How small habits create long-term progress.
Let's continue. Consistency is one of the most misunderstood parts of learning. Many people think it means doing a lot every day, but in reality, it means returning regularly, even in small ways.
Yes, consistency is about rhythm, not intensity. It is better to engage with English for a short time every day than to study for hours once a week.
Short, regular exposure helps the brain relax. It stops English from feeling like a special event. Instead, it becomes part of daily life.
When something feels normal, it feels safer. And when the brain feels safe, it learns more efficiently. This applies to language and many other skills.
Many learners wait for motivation before they practice, but motivation often appears after action, not before it. Starting small makes it easier to begin.
A few minutes of listening or speaking can be enough. Those minutes add up quietly over time. You may not notice progress day to day, but it is happening.
This is why long breaks can feel discouraging. After a pause, English feels distant again. Rebuilding the habit takes energy.
That does not mean breaks are bad. It just means returning gently is important. There is no need for punishment or guilt.
Some days listening is enough. Other days, speaking feels possible. Both are valid forms of practice.
Learning does not have to look the same every day. Flexibility keeps the habit alive. Rigid plans often break under pressure.
I like the idea of low expectations and high frequency. You show up often, but you ask very little of yourself. That approach is sustainable.
And sustainability is what leads to fluency. Not sudden effort, but steady presence. English becomes something you live with, not something you fight.
Over time, this regular contact builds trust. You begin to believe that you can understand and communicate. That belief changes everything.
In the next part, we can talk about patience, because progress is rarely fast or visible.
Yes, learning to stay calm during slow growth. Let's continue. Patience is one of the hardest skills to develop in language learning. People want clear signs of progress. They want to feel improvement quickly.
But language growth is often quiet. It happens beneath the surface. You may understand more before you notice it.
This can feel frustrating. Learners think nothing is changing, but the brain is still absorbing patterns.
Understanding usually improves before speaking does. You recognize words more easily. Sentences start to feel familiar.
These small changes are easy to ignore, but they are signs that listening is working. They show that the language is settling in.
Speaking often lags behind understanding. That gap is normal. It does not mean you are stuck.
Many learners compare themselves to others. They hear someone speak fluently and feel discouraged. Comparison creates unnecessary pressure.
Everyone's learning path is different. Background, exposure, and experience all matter. There is no single timeline.
Patience means allowing your own pace, not rushing it, not judging it.
When you accept a slower rhythm, stress decreases. And again, less stress means better learning. The pattern keeps repeating.
Some days will feel easy, other days will feel confusing. Both are part of progress.
Confusion often appears before improvement. It means your brain is reorganizing information. That stage is uncomfortable but necessary.
Instead of asking, "Why am I still not fluent?" it can help to ask, "What feels easier than before?" That question changes perspective.
And it reminds you that growth is happening.
Even when it is slow, even when it feels invisible. In the next part, I think we should talk about confidence. Not confidence as perfection, but as calm.
Yes, calm confidence changes how people communicate.